Mrs. Maceo Cabrera Esteves, and I'm the owner of Booklandia. We are an online bookstore specializing in Spanish bilingual books for kids and teens, as well as works by own voices authors in the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. Booklandia started in 2016, and we have been sending books out to families, schools, and organizations from our home in Oakland, California. I am very excited to work with the Junior Library Guild and Reina Luz Alegre for this event.
So I'm Alex Aceves, and I'm an editor at the Junior Library Guild, and I'm super excited to be co-hosting this event with Booklandia. So I am, in my capacity as a JLG editor, I'm in charge of the Spanish language categories. So I make recommendations for our primary Spanish, Spanish elementary, and Spanish middle grade categories, and that's because I'm from Mexico originally, so I'm a native Spanish speaker. And I'm also in charge of some of the middle grade categories. So I specialize particularly in middle grade fiction. And so it was in that capacity, and my capacity as an editor for the middle grade lists, that I first encountered Reina's book, The Dream Weaver, and ultimately ended up recommending it for Junior Library Guild's lists for many reasons that we will get into after Reina does her reading. So now I'm going to hand it over to Reina. She can introduce her book and herself to you a little bit more. And then she's going to do a reading, and afterwards we can really get into a conversation about why exactly, like what is so special about this book, and why exactly I think that it's just going to charm so many readers now that it's out there in the world and on shelves. So Reina, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. The Dream Weaver is about a 12-year-old girl named Zoey who has moved around a lot after her mom passed away a few years before the book starts. Her dad is a bit unstable. She goes to live with her dad and her brother at the Jersey Shore with her abuelo, with her grandpa, who she calls Papi, who's her mom's father, who does not see eye to eye with her dad. Zoey is of Cuban descent, like me. I am actually technically the first generation in my family. My mom and my grandparents were born in Cuba, but my mom came here when she was small, and so I guess I'm like first generation and a half, maybe. Zoey, on the other hand, is second generation. Her mom was born in the US, her grandparents were born in Cuba. So I will now read you an excerpt from The Dreamweaver. So this is the Papi, the grandpa, talking. And so he's kind of like scolding dad. He says to him, "You are a father too who quits every single job he starts. And it's not like you have even one." Papi pointed his index finger at dad's shirt. "One big passion you try to make work. Oh no, you are not a painter or a poet or a chef like my Jasmine. No, you have dream of the day like my restaurant in the bowling alley used to have soup of the day. You're not special, you have specials," Papi shouted, waving his hands for emphasis. "Today grilled cheese, tomorrow motorcycles. But que va, mijo, you are 44 years old, time to grow up. Not that it's any of your business, but Jasmine and I had an equal marriage. I supported her dreams," Dad said, spitting out the words like they were marbles that had been stuck in his throat for 5 years. "And she supported mine." "My daughter did everything," Papi said, his voice rising. "She raised the kids, kept house, and used her salary to bail you out of every mess you make. Equal marriage, you take all the dreams and leave her all the stress. That was equal. You work her to death. Pobrecita. No wonder my daughter had the heart attack at only 39. At this revelation, Zoe's own heart nearly stopped. Mommy's death wasn't Dad's fault. It couldn't be, right? She glanced at Jose to see what he thought, but her brother looked as shocked as she felt. His eyes were wide, staring at Papi. "I won't have you speak about me that way in front of my own children, Rafael," Dad said, his voice low and deadly. His eyes narrowed into thin slits. Papi crossed his arms again, and an angry train of Spanish words barreled from his lips. The only word Zoey caught was her mom's name, Jasmine. But Dad stood up so fast, his chair fell backward onto the brown linoleum floor with a loud bang. "How dare you," Dad roared. Zoey gaped at him, shocked by his sudden anger and surprised that he'd understood Papi. She thought Dad, the only non-Cuban in their family, spoke even less Spanish than she did. After all, it was he who'd hidden away all of Mommy's Spanish music CDs when she died, taken away every reminder of her culture, from the drawings of guardian angels beneath their mattresses to the hourglass-shaped cafetera cubana she'd used to make strong coffee when Dad went on business trips. But apparently he understood plenty. "This is my house. I can speak the truth as I see it," Papi shouted, getting to his feet now, fists balled at his sides. Both men leaned forward menacingly with only the wooden table between them. Zoe's family had always been loud, really loud, though their arguments were never physical. But now, for the first time in her life, Zoey was afraid that Dad and Papi might actually exchange blows. "Stop it, please. Mommy wouldn't want you to fight. Everyone just stop." Startled, Papi and Dad glanced at Zoey as if they'd forgotten she and Jose were still listening. The invisible fishing line reeling them toward each other was suddenly, thankfully, broken. Dad took a step back, blinking. Papi began cleaning his glasses with a napkin. "No more fighting," Zoey ordered again, choking back tears, and then she bolted up the stairs to her mother's old room.
Thank you so much. I love that passage. I love that you have this really focused story that's like amplifying an experience that hasn't had a lot of attention, a lot of coverage, especially with Zoey having this throughout the book. She has this kind of conflict about whether she's Cuban enough, like she's uncomfortable that her Spanish isn't as good as it could be, and she's sometimes not very familiar with the food, or she's like not sure about it. But then simultaneously there's this other aspect to Zoe's like coming of age experience that's more like she wants to learn to be dressy, but she doesn't have a mom figure. She wants to learn how to wear makeup, and she wants to feel more comfortable in her own skin. And that's just universal, being a teenager and like coming of age and figuring out who you are. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like,
No, I definitely agree. I think that it all sort of ties in because at least for me, I remember middle school being this time of like really questioning everything. You suddenly feel a lot more independent than your parents, even though you may not have as much freedom as you want to, but you're just suddenly like, wait, do I believe the things I was taught? I mean, for me, actually, it was probably going in the other direction than Zoey because I felt very connected to my Cuban heritage. But as a kid, I often just wanted to fit in. And like you said, there's not a lot of books about, well, at least back then there were. And now there's starting to be more, still not enough in my opinion, but we need more. But back then, like definitely nothing I was assigned at school like ever featured like, I think I mean, maybe one book for the entire Latinx experience I can think of that was assigned in middle school. So I wanted to be like, I didn't really want to speak Spanish that much, and I didn't, I was going in the opposite direction of Zoey back then, but I love that Zoey is going the other way because she hasn't been clued into it, and so she wants that, like not only because she, like in part just because she misses her mom, but in part just because she's now living with grandpa who's quizzing her on her Spanish. I just thought about what I wanted to wear a lot and figuring out what looks good or feeling uncomfortable is like, you want to just feel confident. So that's the message we tried to portray through Zoe's story is that you want to, like fashion wise, you want to, like it's superficial. It's what inside that counts. But if you feel better and if you're not having to worry about like, I'm wearing this outfit that's like uncomfortable or just makes me feel awkward, then you feel better. Then you have more confidence to be able to let your inside shine without like sort of like being self-conscious or being too self-conscious where it's like, my outfit is really bothering me. Do I look okay? So yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, middle school is just like this big ball of questions and am I enough?
I love what you're saying about the, like wanting to explore that without having to be superficial about it. And it is true that obviously like clothes are just clothes, but there is something about picking what you're going to wear and feeling comfortable in your clothes it's an act of self-expression, right? And actually that is why I love, so I love my favorite like secondary character was Lacey. And she's really the character, I think, through who you kind of explore that specific theme, the like clothes as confidence versus just like being fashionable. And what I love about her is that she is actually like really, really complex. Like she comes on stage and you think like, oh, I've seen this character in a million middle grade books before. She's just the like perfect, like kind of mean girl, like kind of, but like cute and stylish, but not very nice, kind of shallow. But then it really, she's actually the one who tells Zoey, like, it's just about feeling confident and about feeling strong, like almost something to sharpen her own edges against or something. Like where did Lacey come from? Like, what, I loved her so much. Tell me more about Lacey.
I think she was so fun to write. Just one of my favorite characters because I'm trying to think of how did she evolve. So I was starting with like thinking about middle school and how superficial some of my concerns were and like how I thought of so much failing all the time about what I wanted to wear. And then so I wanted a character who like nails it more. Like Zoey, Lacey is supposed to be like a cute girl who like has a good fashion sense. But like I'm so interested in characters who aren't what they seem at first. So I wanted a character like that who seems like she's kind of mean and judgmental. And part of it is that I wrote her as like a very privileged character. And that kind of honesty I feel like is, I mean, you don't have to be privileged to be honest, but I feel like in her character, it is maybe tied in with her privilege because she is like very wealthy and like she just, when she can wear anything she wants, she doesn't have a budget for her wardrobe. Like she's privileged in many, many ways, but she just calls it as she sees it. Like no, she hasn't had a reason not to, or like to try to hem or haw on it. And so she's just fun, and she just evolved more and more. I feel like with every draft, and she was a fun foil. Like where Zoey is very self-conscious about what she wears and like wearing her brother's old clothes and trying to just figure it out. Like Lacey has been working on her look forever, but like then conversely, Lacey is and I feel like part of it is her friendship too with another character, Issa, who is also very into style, but not as privileged, definitely not as wealthy as the Lacey character. But she is just like a sweetheart. Like she's just a nice person. Like I feel like there's always, not always, but I hope there's that most friend groups have that like outgoing person who's just nice. Like I don't know that without Issa, Lacey is as nice, but with Issa, Lacey, like friends, we affect each other. So like Issa is just like that personality where she's just warm and inviting and wants to be friends with everybody and curious about everything. And
that actually makes me think of Zoey and Issa and Lacey are part of this bowling team. And we haven't talked about that as much, but there is this like very like suspenseful bowling storyline where they're, and it's, it's the friendship group trying to win, the bowling team trying to win a bowling tournament, but also Papi is trying to save his bowling alley. So the two stories kind of merge together in this, like I would think like the climax of the book really happens around this, like this bowling tournament day. And I want to ask about that because I have to say, I know nothing about bowling. Like I did not bowl very much as a child. I don't know why, it just was not, for whatever reason, it was not a thing that my friends and I did very much. So I know nothing about it, but I was like riveted during that live. Like, what's going to happen? I don't know. And I'm so stressed about it. So I want to ask, why bowling? Do you bowl? Is that, or was it something that you picked for?
I grew up bowling like occasionally. I'm no like pro bowler at all. Like my bowling scores are terrible and I prefer bumpers, but like I did bowl like growing up once in a while, like with friends or like the occasional birthday party. So the bowling alley itself is based on like those bowling alleys I remember from like when I was a kid because they felt fun and comforting and they just reminded me of being a kid. In terms of the actual game of bowling, so as I said, I like bumpers. So I did a lot of research. I mean, I watched like bowling video after bowling video after bowling video. I've watched PBA bowling, I've watched the youth bowling, and so I did a lot of research on bowling and like different bowling methods and scoring and so I don't think I still wish I had more expertise, but I did a lot of research and watching, actually one of my favorite characters also is Patrick, who's the captain of the bowling team, and he's so serious about bowling. And that was definitely inspired by, his personality was inspired by watching all these videos where like these kids are so cute, they're like little middle school kids and they're so serious about their bowling, like the whole like alley will be pin drop silent in these like championship videos, and they seem like they're taking it just so very seriously and professionally. So he was inspired by all of those videos that I watched.
Yeah, I mean, now I want to go look for videos of bowling because, like, it never really occurred to me that that's a thing I could find on YouTube. But actually, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, if it's anything like the intensity of me reading your bowling scene where I was like, really stressed out, then that sounds like a very fun way to like while away a few pandemic hours. But yeah, I love that too. You're so right about Patrick. That is actually something else that is so like so like signature about being middle school aged, right? That I think like elementary schoolers are such dilettantes. Like one day they want to take horseback riding, and like one day they want to take ballet lessons, and it's really around that age where like the stuff they don't care about starts to fall away, and it's part of that same process of like figuring out who you are, right? That they're like their passions really start focusing, and they really start figuring out what they care about and what they want to spend their time on. So that's so true about Patrick, like that commitment. And it's really just him, right? Because everybody else has like at least one other like side hustle, like ESAD with the math. And I actually think that you do spend some time talking about Zoey having to figure out her own dream. Like that's even how it sort of ties in to the title, right? There's a lot of different ideas about what someone's dream is. Like for Poppy, it was at one point having, owning this bowling alley because it was a thing that he could take ownership of as an immigrant. And then like the dad is kind of dream seeking. He's trying on a lot of different dreams. And Zoey spends a lot of time wondering like what she should be passionate about and what her dream should be, which is, I mean, she's definitely young to be worrying about it, which Poppy does tell her, and I really like that moment too. But it's the right age to be thinking about it. And actually, like I feel like one of the things she lands on as maybe a dream is the baking. Like there's the scene where she does like she plans a bake sale to save the bowling alley, and she is in the kitchen like whizzing up all of these different things. And that just makes me think of something else I really loved about your book in general, which is how great all the food descriptions are. I mean, like there's a lot of different kind of food in the novel, like the ropa vieja that she eats like the first day she's at Poppy's, and all these like delicious baked goods that she makes, like thinking they're going to save the bowling alley, and then the chicken and avocado from the cafe down the street. So yeah, like where's you definitely strike me as a writer who thinks of like food details as something important to like world building in a book. So I'd love to hear more about that.
I love it when books make me hungry. Like I feel like then it was really descriptive, like okay, I'm like now I want to eat whatever it is that they're eating because they described it in such mouth-watering detail. So yeah, I love food. As you can probably tell, I love food. I will cook, not as much as I want to or should. I love the eating more than the cooking, but I will cook too. So yeah, no, I love food. And I remember, I feel like in English class, and I don't remember even like what grade I was, but like I've had many wonderful teachers along the way, and one or many of them, I just remember it always drilled in my head, like with writing, that you should like use all five senses as much as possible, like in a natural way, and so like because that way you'll more fully engage the reader. So like taste is part of it, and so like the smell of the food, the taste of the food, snack while you're reading, like which I'll often do. I'll try to multitask, not just because I'm hungry because the book makes me hungry, but like I'll be multitasking, like reading a few pages while having my meal. So yeah, no, I'm all about the food. And one of my favorite like little scenes to write was the grandpa his wife used to run the restaurant in the bowling alley, and since she passed away, he kind of like let it go. And so he's very reluctant to change, and one of the things he doesn't want to change is that like palates have evolved too. Like now, like his traditional cuisine that he used to serve maybe isn't enough to woo younger customers who want like more like he's like all cranky about it. He's like, fusion this and fusion that and different kinds of mayonnaise. I don't want to like deal with like expanding my culinary horizons. I just want to serve them the same thing that I've been doing for 30 years because it was fine. So I was like, and there's just like different ways to use food as a writer where you can use it to engage, but also to like further the plot. It's like another small detail that's like an example of the grandpa not wanting to change and the potential consequences that are terrible that might await him for not wanting to try to adapt a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I see exactly what you mean. You've got like literal plot advancing food, and you've got like character building food, and then you've also got like world building food. It's great. Okay, so I think that is a good place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your beautiful story and for your, beautiful rendition of what it's like to be a 12-year-old and what it's like to be a Latinx 12-year-old in this country right now. So thank you so much.